Content warning. Paradox Live includes themes of trauma, child abuse and neglect, violence, suicide, death, human experimentation, and gang activity. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey there, heads. Welcome back, and I hope you've been doing alright. Today we'll be talking about the stage battle Pride and Family. I'm really glad that I've been able to release these videos around the same time as the anime episodes have been airing, because it gives me a chance to refresh my memory and to appreciate the differences between the drama tracks in the show. As the sixth man, I'm fired up to see the family episode and to tell you about one of my favorite drama tracks that the teams had to date. So let's get into it. The series' third stage battle is Pride, featuring Bei versus the Cat's Whiskers. The first drama opens in the immediate aftermath of the justice drama. The Cat's Whiskers have just lost to Akanyatsura, and Yohei is expressing his frustration. While Simon tries to mellow him out, Ryo decides that a nice round of calisthenics is just what they need to shake off the disappointment. Over the sounds of Ryu bending Shiki's joints in questionable directions, the door to the dressing room opens and Bei enters. Simon greets his students warmly, but Alan, Hajun, and Anne say they've come as their future opponents to pay a visit and scout the competition. Hajun, passive-aggressive as usual, comments that he's heard that Quadra X has performed with some success, but it seems that Simon and Yohei's time has long since passed. This sparks a heated debate on the nature of hopping on new trends versus preserving an old-school sound, with Yohei getting heated while Simon looks on, unfazed and amused. Ryu suddenly swoops in, sniffing Alan and Anne and declaring that they smell similar. However, he notes that Hajun smells different from the other two because he keeps to himself. He continues, comparing Hajun to a mushroom wrapped up in plastic packaging and showing only his presentable side. He warns that if Hajun doesn't come out soon, he'll rot and he'll be unwanted. This comment has an immediate effect on Hajun, who shoves Ryu away from him and storms off. Alan and Anne are surprised by this outburst, and they follow after him. The scene shifts to TCW, who are back at Bar 7-4. Shiki is struggling with his trap reaction, but is looked after by Ryu. Meanwhile, Simon and Yohei talk about their shared career in music, with Bei's comments acting as a catalyst to reflect. Though his opinion of the trio is low, Yohei comments that the young lady seems nice and reminds him of Tsubaki, though they look nothing alike. Simon agrees, but informs Yohei that Anne isn't a young lady. Simon then expresses his gratitude for Yohei, who waited for him to return to music after the death of his wife, and who continues to make music with him. Yohei, embarrassed, tells him not to make it weird, and points out that they're not Quadra X anymore, but rather they're the Cat's Whiskers with Ryu and Shiki. The second drop-up begins with Alan and Anne worrying about Hajun, who has not emerged from his room since they returned to their shared apartment. Hajun tells them that he's just upset and will come out when he can compose himself. Alan doesn't accept this, saying that it's frustrating to know that Hajun is upset but not understanding why. He continues to say that Ryu is right, and they haven't really looked at each other beyond the surface level. In the interest of reducing the space between himself and the other members of Bei, Alan describes the traumatic memory he relives in his trap reaction. He sees the fire as his parents burn his hip-hop album collection, alongside the equipment he bought to produce new tracks. The fire itself is a culmination of his parents' distaste for his musical self-expression, and by extension, his sense of identity. Following this, Alan would run away from home. Anne then jumps in to share their trap reaction. It begins with the sound of scissors as their mother cuts their hair. After she and Anne's father divorced, their mother's nature as an emotionally abusive narcissist is revealed, and she forces Anne into the role of her little prince, who will love her unconditionally. Part of this process involves her forcing Anne to conform to an idealized image of a son, and thereby stifling Anne's own personal identity. Despite recognizing this toxicity, Anne admits that there is a part of them that still wants to be loved by and to love their mother. Hajun, moved by Alan and Anne's openness, admits that he was called unwanted by his parents. He reveals that he was actually adopted, or an illegitimate child, which is a plot detail that is still unclear to this point. His parents needed an heir, so he was taken in until they were able to produce a son of their own, Dongha. Upon his brother's birth, Hajun was deemed unnecessary and sent to Japan to strengthen the Yon's business connection. Hajun admits that he's terrified that if he shows an imperfect side of himself, that the people around him will realize that he's unnecessary like his parents did, and will cast him aside. Alan, very much one for dramatic, shonen anime-esque emotional moments, yells that Hajun's an idiot, because he would never abandon him. Hajun was the one who encouraged Alan when he first got interested in hip-hop, and opened his door to Alan when he ran away from home. Hajun and Anne playfully tease Alan for getting wound up, and Hajun finally opens the door to his friends. The final scene of the drop-off shows the Cat's Whiskers paying Bay a visit after a performance. They say they're scouting the opposition, and when pressed by Hajun, Yohei retracts his earlier statement that they were just clout-chasing kids playing with trendy sounds, acknowledging them as proper musicians. Ryu addresses Hajun, saying that it's good he came out of his packaging, but that he still doesn't have much time. When TCW leaves, Anne asks Hajun if Ryu said something weird to him, and says that they'll beat his ass if he did. Hajun replies that there's nothing to worry about, and the three chatter and banter amongst themselves to close out the scene. The Cat's Whiskers would go on to win this battle with their song For Real against Bay's Emblem. The anime blended parts of the Justice drama with parts of the Pride drama in episode 3, choosing to show TCW performing For Real in the Justice episode. Here are some of the main takeaways of the drama. Ryu continues to demonstrate a deeper awareness of the people and circumstances that surround him, which makes his comment to Hajun at the end of the second drapa especially concerning. Hajun is very averse to displaying weakness to even those he trusts and cares about because of his learned trauma of being abandoned. I also thought that there were some parallels demonstrated in this drama between Alan and Hajun and Simon and Yohei. Both duos are built upon a shared passion for music and instances of finding a place to belong. Alan's musical creation was encouraged by Hajun, who would later give him a literal home. Yohei's musical creation was initially encouraged by Simon and Tsubaki, who would provide the young gangster with sanctuary. Following the tragedy of Tsubaki's passing, Yohei was the one who would give Simon somewhere to return. Family is the fourth stage battle in the series, featuring Cosmez vs. Akan Yatsura. The first drapa opens with Kanata speaking to Iori and Zen about some dirty job. Iori pays him, while Zen praises Cosmos' intense performance at the Desire stage battle, saying that Kanata looked like he was having a good time. Kanata says it doesn't matter, because they lost. He then asks Iori if he plans to tell the rest of his group about employing him to do dirty work, collecting phantom metals from users who have perished from metal erosion. He continues, berating Iori for calling his group a family, when he only tells them what's convenient, and asserting that Suiseki isn't even his real name, but was given to him by the late head of the gang. He says that Iori is letting the other members of Akan Yatsura kill themselves with phantom metals for his own gain, and that they don't have the right to be called a family. Iori pushes back, asking if Kanata's told his brother about him doing dirty jobs, and saying that they're the same for not worrying their brothers with unnecessary things. This flusters Kanata, and he storms out, promising that he and Nayuta will defeat Iori's mock family in the stage battle. Though Iori laughs it off, Zen is upset by the attacks on Iori's character. He says that Kanata will have to face the truth eventually, and that he will surely understand why Iori has employed him to collect phantom metals. Iori insists that it's fine. Kanata is just angry at adults because of his poor treatment by them in the past, but he's got a stray cat vibe that makes Iori want to help him. Zen grumbles a bit that they aren't running a charity, but Iori waves him off and insists that they will win the 10 billion yen and settle things properly. He then proceeds to leave on an errand, but playfully denies to tell Zen what it is. Zen is left to ask himself why, even when he's prepared himself to do anything for Iori, Iori insists on doing things by himself. Kanata then goes home with ramen-te takeout for Nayuta, having ordered 2 different dishes. When Nayuta pushes Kanata to take the first pick, Kanata instead says that they should split them, so they can both have half of each. This leads to an argument between the twins. Nayuta is frustrated by Kanata's constant insistence on self-sacrifice, and not expanding his world beyond the 2 of them. He says that Kanata seems to have changed after his interactions with Bei, and that he thinks that this is positive growth. Kanata responds angrily, desperately pleading with Nayuta not to leave him behind. He reminds his brother that, through all of their past hardships, the only ones that they could rely on were each other. Kanata and Nayuta embrace and confirm to each other that they are the only ones they need to be happy. Meanwhile, at the Akan Yatsura Hype House, Satsuki and Reo are arguing about bathroom usage and being scolded by Zen, who's preparing the food, as Hokusai sets the table for breakfast. Iori comes into the room yawning, and comments that Zen's cooking smells good. His only complaint is that Zen is insistent upon protein shakes for dessert in the pursuit of better physical health. Finally, the five of them sit down to eat, but are interrupted by the sound of the doorbell being repeatedly pressed. Satsuki jumps up to chase off whoever's disturbed their meal so early in the morning, but Kanata is already standing in the foyer when he goes to answer the door. For the record, because of the members of Akanyatsura who work at the hostess club and the boys taking night classes, their days actually start out kind of late in the morning, and Iori wakes up around noon. Kanata quickly explains that he found their house by looking into the Suiseki family, and, to the surprise of Iori and Zen, he apologizes for his behavior the day before, and pleads for their help in locating Nayuta. The second drapa opens with Kanata having explained the situation and the Akanyatsura boys offering suggestions. Hokusai, Satsuki, and Reo are unperturbed by the idea of Nayuta popping out of the apartment and are confused by Kanata's insistence that he wouldn't do such a thing without telling him first. Kanata admits that they had a fight the previous night, and after Iori presses him for details, he explains that he's worried that the thugs he fought in the Desire drama will mistake Nayuta for him and will try to take their revenge on him. With this understanding, the members of Akanyatsura agree to help. Zen tasks the boys with grouping up and scouring the area while he and Iori stand by and wait for useful information to come in. Iori cheekily compares him to a police detective from a TV show, which Zen seems to dislike. The boys then split into two groups, Hokusai and Reo and Satsuki and Kanata, and go on their way. After hours of searching without a trace, the boys are baffled by their absolute lack of any leads. They've been all across the area, and Hokusai has even tried unsuccessfully to speak to cats for some information. Zen calls to tell the boys that he and Iori haven't found any trace of Nayuta, and Reo grumbles that his past as a former police detective hasn't been any help at all. Frustrated, Kanata says that the others could just go home, and he'll keep searching for Nayuta by himself. Satsuki is insulted by the perceived slight to the group's sense of Yakuza chivalry. Think of a Robin Hood-esque sense of morality. And he tells Kanata that just because they haven't been successful to this point, that they're not so fickle as to just give up and stop helping. Hokusai and Reo back Satsuki up, telling Kanata that sometimes it's alright to accept help, and they understand his urgency looking for his brother. Reo recalls that Kanata has mentioned looking into Suiseki Gumi, and asks if he knew about the raid. Kanata says he saw something about it, and Reo cryptically replies that had their timing been off by a second, all of them would be dead. He describes the ocean of blood he witnessed, and the bitter loss of the Oyaji, or old man, gang leader, and all the others. Having lived through that horror, he swore to himself that he wouldn't ever lose another loved one like that again. Satsuki reiterates that they're a family, and even if others perceive them as just being thugs, the Akanyatsura members are all that each other has. He explains that growing up, he struggled in school and had a hair-trigger temper that made it hard for him to function normally. His teachers and even his parents gave up on him, and this led him to going down a bad path that would ultimately end with him in juvie before he could complete middle school. When he got out, he found out that he had been abandoned by his parents, only to be taken in by Iori and the gang. The gangsters provided him guidance and direction, never giving up on him, and for that he's grateful. Reo chimes in, saying that he got into hip-hop thanks to his father, and he inherited his looks from his mother, but his biological family ultimately fell apart after a messy situation involving debts. Hokusai finishes the trauma dumping by telling Kanata that he's the son of a criminal who's locked away for life, and that Iori and the gangsters were the first people to treat him like his own person. They encouraged him and validated him, and because of that he considers them his family. Three boys explain to Kanata that even though they chose their own family due to their circumstances, they understand his desperation to find Nayuta because of their own bonds and losses. At this opportune moment, Nayuta appears suddenly and catches the whole group completely off guard. When asked where he's been, Nayuta uncertainly says that he went out to think up some lyrics, then got lost, got tired, took a nap, and then, what else was it? Kanata is frustrated, but overcome with relief, and he pleads with Nayuta again not to disappear like that. Hokusai, Satsuki, and Reo treat Kanata and Nayuta to Raimante, and as they prepare to go back to their respective homes, Kanata asks the boys what they would do if one of their family members was lying to them, or not being entirely truthful. Satsuki laughs and says that a few secrets among family is normal, which Reo follows by sharing the location of Satsuki's stash of, magazines. Hokusai says he won't question a lie told to protect him, and the other boys agree and say that they're happy to put their lives on the line for their big brother. With that, the boys take their leave. Nayuta is pleased that Kanata created some connections with new people, and they head home, confident in their ability to win together. Iori receives the call from the boys that they found Nayuta, and he passes the news on to Zen. Zen says it's frustrating that they can't do more than watch, and Iori says it's true, but that Cosmez is a strong opponent that they can't afford to underestimate. Unfortunately for them, Cosmez would go on to defeat Akanyatsura's call for families, Akanyatsura's forever, with their "This is my love." Some of the important takeaways of this drama are: Iori and Zen are both aware of something that concerns Kanata and Phantom Metals, but are limited in their ability to help. The theme of Iori and Zen not telling the boys something for their own good is revisited. The Akanyatsura boys were all taken in by Iori and the gang after being abandoned or otherwise left to fend for themselves. Kanata is terrified by the thought of Nayuta disappearing suddenly without warning. Nayuta appeared abruptly and with an unconvincing explanation after having been missing without a trace to the point that even a former police investigator couldn't find anything. And of course, most significantly, Satsuki hides his in the. By the end of the first 4 stage battles, each team had 1 victory and 1 loss. For the competition's final 2 battles, however, an exhibition show was announced with new art, new songs, and collaboration songs with real-world artists. I personally am hoping that the anime will play out the events of the exhibition show dramas, because they contained a lot of different character interactions and provided a lot of character backstory that hadn't quite managed to make it into other dramas. But we'll talk more about that next time. Thanks to everyone who's watched, liked, and commented on my videos, and to all those who've subscribed to my channel. Any and all engagement means a lot to me, and I'm glad that I can help spread some awareness for the series. I hope you're all hyped for the results of the current Revolution stage battle, but remember to treat everyone with respect regardless of their oshi. As much as I get being wildly biased, there's no reason to be nasty to others for who they support. And with that, I'll catch you later, heads.